This is All Things Agentic. What's actually changing in Agentic AI? Brought to you by the Agentic Entrepreneur team. Something shifted in the past couple of weeks, and it's worth naming precisely. For most of the last year, the dominant question in Agentic AI has been, can we build it? Can we make agents that actually do useful work? Can we move past chatbots and into systems that take action? That question has been answered. Comprehensively, the answer is yes. And now a different question is running through every boardroom, every startup, every solo operation. Can we control them? This week gave us 3 stories that, taken together, mark that crossing point. An open-source personal agent that went viral and immediately became a security crisis, an enterprise platform designed to manage fleets of AI agents like employees, and an observability layer emerging to monitor what agents actually do in production. The pattern across all 3 is the same. Agents have met reality, and reality has opinions. For anyone running a business and thinking about deploying agents, which is, frankly, most of this show's audience, the implications are concrete and immediate. Let's start with the story that has security researchers burying their heads in their hands. OpenClaw, you might have heard of it under its earlier names, Claudebot or Maltbot, before trademark disputes forced the rebrand, is an open-source autonomous AI agent created by developer Peter Steinberger. It runs locally on your machine, connects to messaging platforms like WhatsApp, Slack, and iMessage, and can manage your calendar, handle your email, book flights, run scripts, control your browser, and execute shell commands on your behalf. It remembers context across sessions, it learns your preferences, and it has racked up over 135,000 GitHub stars in a matter of weeks, one of the fastest growing open source projects in history. Here's the thing, it's genuinely useful. The vision is exactly what personal AI assistants have always promised. You wake up on Monday morning to a Slack message. I noticed your staging server was low on disk space, so I cleaned it up and pushed the new build. That's compelling. That's the dream. And then reality showed up. Security researchers started scanning the internet and found over 30,000 OpenClaw instances exposed to the public web, running without authentication, with full system access, leaking API keys and credentials in plain text. A critical remote code execution vulnerability, scored 8.8 out of 10, meant that a single malicious link could hijack an entire instance. In the ClawHub marketplace, where users share agent skills, essentially plugins, researchers found 341 malicious skills out of roughly 2,800. 335 of those infections came from a single supply chain attack. Cisco's security team ran one of these malicious skills, cheerfully titled, "What Would Elon Do?" against OpenClaw, and found it was functionally malware. It exfiltrated data to an external server controlled by the skill's author. Their verdict on the whole experiment was memorable. CrowdStrike's George Kurtz put it even more bluntly. Giving broad permissions to these agents is like giving full access to a drunken intern. Now, I want to be careful here. The point isn't that OpenClaw is uniquely bad. Trend Micro's analysis made this explicit. These risks are inherent to the agentic AI paradigm itself. OpenClaw doesn't introduce new categories of risk. It amplifies existing ones. The difference is that its unrestricted configurability, combined with explosive adoption, means the consequences arrived faster than anyone expected. For people who run businesses, the lesson isn't avoid agents. It's more specific than that. Security researchers are coalescing around a concept they're calling the lethal trifecta. And it's worth knowing, because it's the framework that will define safe agent deployment for the next several years. An agent becomes dangerous when 3 conditions combine: access to private data, the ability to communicate externally, and the ability to interact with untrusted content. Any 2 of those are manageable. All 3 together, without proper architecture, is an open door. If you're a solo operator thinking about deploying an autonomous agent, and the appeal is obvious because the productivity gain is real, the lethal trifecta is your design constraint. Not a reason to stop, but a reason to architect carefully. Sandbox the agent. Limit its permissions. Don't let it access your production systems and the open internet simultaneously. These aren't enterprise-scale governance problems, they're decisions you make before you give a tool the keys. While OpenClaw was demonstrating what happens when agents run without guardrails, OpenAI was launching the opposite end of the spectrum. On February 5th, OpenAI introduced Frontier, an end-to-end platform for enterprises to build, deploy, and manage AI agents. The pitch is telling. They want companies to treat agents exactly like human employees, onboard them, give them defined identities and permissions, connect them to institutional knowledge, evaluate their performance, set boundaries they can't cross. The early adopter list reads like a Fortune 500 index. HP, Intuit, Uber, State Farm, Thermo Fisher. The numbers OpenAI cites are striking. A manufacturer that reduced production optimization work from 6 weeks to 1 day, an investment company that freed up 90% of its salespeople's time through agent-managed processes. There's something architecturally significant in how Frontier works. It creates what OpenAI calls a shared business context, connecting siloed data warehouses, CRM systems, ticketing tools, and internal applications into a semantic layer that all agents can reference. That's not just an agent tool, that's an attempt to become the operating system of the enterprise. But there's a tension worth noting. VentureBeat reported that enterprises are actively moving toward multi-vendor agent architectures. They don't want to be locked into a single platform. Tatiana Mahmout, CEO of agent observability company Wayfound, was direct about it. They're not ready to fully commit. Things are moving too fast. So OpenAI is building a centralized platform at the exact moment the market is demanding flexibility. For the independent builder watching this, Frontier isn't your tool. It's enterprise scale, enterprise priced, and enterprise architected. But it signals something that matters. The industry has recognized that managing agents is now a harder problem than building them. That's the shift. And it applies at every scale, including yours. Here's where it gets interesting for builders at any scale. Cisco unveiled an AI agent monitoring tool for Splunk Observability Cloud last week. Real-time visibility into how agents perform, what they cost, and how they behave. They're also expanding what they call Agentic ops across networking, security, and observability. This is a new product category forming in real time, agent observability. When agents act autonomously, making decisions, executing workflows, chaining together actions, someone needs to know what they're actually doing. Not just whether they succeeded, but how they got there, what they accessed, what they decided, and what it cost. The parallel to the early days of cloud infrastructure is striking. First came the tools, then the monitoring, then the governance. We're watching the same sequence compress into months instead of years. And the reason is simple. Agents with system access who make mistakes don't just return bad output, they take bad actions. The blast radius is different. For operators building their own agent systems, even simple ones, this is a practical signal. You need logging. You need to know what your agents did, not just what they produced. The tooling is coming at the enterprise level, but the principle applies now, at every level of operation. One more thread to pull, because it connects to everything. OpenAI began testing ads in ChatGPT last week, the day after Anthropic ran a Super Bowl commercial explicitly mocking ads in AI assistants. Ads appear in responses for free and low-cost tier users, matched to conversation topics and chat history. Anthropic, meanwhile, published a blog post declaring its products will remain ad-free, arguing that ads are incompatible with trust. Set aside the competitive positioning for a moment and look at what's being decided. The business model of your AI tools shapes what those tools optimize for. An ad-supported agent has two customers, you and the advertiser. That's not inherently wrong, but it is an architectural fact. And if you're building operational systems on top of these tools, it's an architectural fact you need to account for. The divergence is now public and explicit. Two leading AI companies, two fundamentally different positions on how to sustain the relationship between agent and user. For builders choosing their stack, this isn't a philosophical debate, it's a dependency decision. So here's where we land. 6 weeks into 2026, agents have moved from demos to production faster than anyone anticipated, and the result is exactly what you'd predict if you think in systems. The hard problems aren't building the agent, they're controlling it, monitoring it, securing it, and deciding whose interests it serves. OpenClaw shows the risk, Frontier shows one institutional response, Cisco shows the monitoring layer forming, the ChatGPT ads decision shows the business model layer splitting. For the operator, the founder, the solo builder, the small team deploying their first agent workflow, this is actually clarifying. The lethal trifecta gives you a design framework. The principle that managing agents is harder than building them tells you where to invest your time, and the trust architecture question tells you to think carefully about which platforms you build on, because the incentive structures are diverging fast. The agents are here. The question now is whether we're building the architecture to make them safe, useful, and aligned with the people they're supposed to serve. That question isn't theoretical anymore, it's operational, and it's yours to answer. That's all things agentic. The methodology behind this show lives in the Agentic Entrepreneur. The book and the toolkit are at theagenticentrepreneur.pro. Full details can be found in the show notes. Thanks for listening.